Welcome to today's episode of the Gem Club podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lehman, and on today's episode, I'm joined by Samar Owais. And before I tell you about Samar, I want to invite listeners to do me a favor. If you can head to wherever you listen to our podcast, actually don't go there. Head to Apple and write a 5-star review and talk about how wonderful of an episode and a podcast that we have. That's really helpful to help more people listen to this podcast. If you do that, thank you. Send me a DM. I'll probably send you a t-shirt or something. Okay, so Samar is incredible. This whole podcast is incredible and lovely. Samar is an email conversion strategist for SaaS and e-commerce brands. She helps companies like HubSpot, Drip, and Pinterest, as well as numerous other e-commerce brands increase their conversions, reduce churn, and fix the money leaking gaps in their emails. Also, she's the founder of Emails Done Right newsletter and the creator of the e-commerce email bootcamp. And on today's episode, one of my teammates, Ashli, who is the managing partner of Basis, one of our sister brands. Ashli helps people get beautiful shopping experiences set up on Shopify. And so we've got two heavy hitters in the world of e-commerce and helping direct-to-consumer brands grow today. And the conversations are fascinating. Samar drops some amazing hot takes when it comes to things you should or shouldn't be doing inside of your email funnels and your email flows, and just has a remarkable story, a wonderful story, and a wonderful perspective on everything. And so hop in, listen to today's episode with Samar and Ashli and myself. So here we go. Samar, thanks for joining us today. We are pumped to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Also for the listeners, we have another guest who's not always on here, but is sometimes on here. We have Ashli, the managing partner of Basis.
Hey, everyone.
Very excited to have. And D'Angelo is here, but he's muted because too many cooks in the kitchen situation. So for any of you who only like listening to D'Angelo and don't want to listen to anybody else, this is a good episode for you to skip because you'll be severely disappointed in all of that. Samar, give us a little bit, we did an intro, but give us a little bit of, maybe give us a long-winded introduction. Like, how did you get into working SaaS, e-commerce, email marketing? What was your introduction into that field? Like, was it an accident that you found yourself there? Did you do it really strategically and intentionally to get into that industry? Give us a little bit of the flavor of how we got here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I may be an email strategist in my work, but when it comes to my own business, strategy is not my strong suit, right? So I kind of fell into email and the SaaS and e-commerce world by trial and error and a lot of tears. So we're talking about end of 2017. I was a burned out content writer, and I was realizing that, content was like I always say content writers have a shelf life, and mine was coming to an end. Like mine was 10 years as a content writer, and then that was it. But the only thing I've ever been good at is writing. And so if not content, then copy is left, right? And I feel like one of my strengths is that I try things. So if somebody gives me an advice, I will go and implement it. And it's also why I quickly figure out whose advice works, whose doesn't, and who really doesn't know what they're talking about, right? So I start experimenting with different types of copy. I write sales pages, website copy, landing pages, and pretty much cried my way through them. Like, did not enjoy, was a horrible time period in my life that I tried to block out. But then I met Val Geisler inside of a course that I was in, and she was looking for subcontractors. And so when she put out a call for subcontractors, I messaged her and I said, Val, I am a fast learner. I don't make the same mistake twice. Will you please take a chance on me? And she did. So she gave me 2 weeks to write an email sequence. And that first week, I was just researching 6 to 8 hours. And I was in seventh heaven or cloud 9 or, whatever your version is. And so when I turned in that first email sequence to her, I knew that I found my thing. And there's been no looking back since. And so I got my start in email under Val Geisler, who was the SaaS email queen, is still the SaaS email queen. And then about a year and a half later, I started working with an agency, but that turned out to be an e-commerce email marketing agency. So that's how I got my start in e-commerce. And I realized that, okay, so SaaS and e-commerce are different, but I love them equally. And so I decided to just keep what I loved and focus on that.
That's amazing. I love how much of your story is like, I just had to take a chance and reach out to someone and be really humble about it and get started. Because I think that's one of the hardest things to do. But almost everyone I know that like loves what they do and is really good at it has done it exactly that way.
Yeah.
And I love when it's other women helping women in an industry that you almost never hear that exact iteration of the story.
Absolutely. So I am so glad you say that because my business has been built and supported by women throughout, right? So
Mhm.
Joanna Weeb was the first one whose mini mastermind I joined. Before that, in my content life, were also filled with women who were helping me. Then came Val Geisler, then came Prerna Malik, who was a business coach for a few months of mine. Now I'm working with Amy Posner, and all of these women are just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And what I love about them is that there's no my way or the highway in their coaching and the way they support you, right? It's okay, so this is what you like to do. This is your life situation. Let's find a way through. And that's kind of my has been my philosophy with email as well. It's one of the things I tell clients like I will be making strategic recommendations, but you need to be realistic and tell me honestly which of these recommendations you can actively implement. Because if I give you an onboarding sequence, let's say, that is based on the ideal scenario, you won't be able to implement it because there is no such thing as an ideal scenario.
Yeah.
So even if you tell me that out of 4 recommendations, you can only make one, tell me. And then it's my job to help you find a way through to those conversions that you need. And so that's kind of the way I approach my work, the way I approach business. And I have been very, very lucky in finding mentors that also approach business and work the same way.
So the people who listen, there's a couple of phrases that we're using kind of often that sort of circle the world that you live in.
Yeah.
Our audience is a pretty wide range of entrepreneurs, and we have a lot of people who listen to this who are like, "Oh, I always wanted to do something like this, but I haven't quite like." I would say it's people who haven't gone to business school. It's not a bunch of people who have an MBA from Stanford or things like that. Those people
Yeah.
don't like us sometimes. I don't know. Like we're not for them.
Yeah. Totally get
Those
that.
people have plenty of places where they're well accepted and spoken to, so we can have a different spot over here. Give us sort of like working definitions of SaaS, or even like what are you working in every day? Give the people some 101.
Okay, so I work with two kinds of companies, right? One is SaaS, which is software as a service. And software as a service is anything where you don't have to download a software, but you can just open it up in your browser or your phone. And so Dropbox is software as a service. Gmail is software as a service. So services like that, right? And then e-commerce is, yes, Amazon is e-commerce, but that's not the kind of e-commerce space that I work in. I work in direct to consumer. And so you're going to a brand's website and you're placing an order from that. So it's almost like retail shopping online. So those are the two industries I work in.
So some are explaining the kind of differences between SaaS and e-commerce and kind of the different industries and businesses you work in. How does your strategy or your approach to the work that you do change based on those kind of two areas of the industry?
It doesn't. So I follow one philosophy, which is customer first. So whether that's SaaS or e-commerce, I will focus on my clients' customers. And like I always keep telling my clients, and there are certain, as we will talk more, you'll realize there are certain phrases I keep saying again and again to my clients. But one of them is, yes, I'm working with you, but I'm working for your customers. So for SaaS, it's their users, and for e-commerce, it's people who are buying from them, right? And so I put the customer first. And the way in email you put the customer first is that you create an entire email journey for them. And you map out all the touch points that they're interacting with the brand. And then you decide what kind of emails they need at that stage. So if somebody's just coming to your website for the first time, they're going to be shown, yes, they'll check out your website and all of that, but you're also going to have a pop-up that will encourage them to sign up for the newsletter, right? And what kind of offer are you making there? My job as an email strategist is to make sure that the conversation that started on the website and the pop-up offer continues in the email so that there's continuity. And so if you're saying exclusive invite, 10% off, all of that, I get to make sure that in the welcome email, everything that's been promised to you in the exact wording that has been promised to you is carried over. And from then on, we start building a relationship, right? So they're just they're new to the brand, they're just getting to know you. What kind of emails do we want to send them, right? What is important to us? What do we want them to know about us? What do they need to know to make a buying decision? And so we map out the email journey based on where the customer or the user is.
As you're a freelancer, so you're not a SaaS or a direct-to-consumer company. Your business isn't. And probably if
I'm
you're
a
in other
listener.
masterminds where you're hanging out with other service providers or freelancers or one or two person businesses, is there anything that you feel like as you're diving into the best practices of the sort of customer first approach that you find yourself, you're like, oh, I can tweak that for myself? I think a lot of people who listen to our podcast are designers and photographers and service providers in one way or another.
Yeah. So one of the things that I always tell myself even is send more emails. It's okay to send more emails, right? That's one of the first things that people like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody, right? People like if it's a newsletter, it's once a week or a weekly newsletter, then like I don't think I can send them more emails. Like you absolutely can. And a lot of times I have to take my own advice and it is so hard. One example of it is that I have an email newsletter called Emails Done Right, and it goes out every Wednesday. But in March, I stopped emailing, and for 6 months, I didn't email. Right now, when my clients come to me and say, "Oh, we haven't emailed our list in a long time. Should we send out an email that addresses that?" And I'm like, you know what? People don't care. They are not waiting in their inboxes for your emails. They have forgotten. So just pick up where you left off, and it works. For my own, when I came back to the newsletter, there was such a strong instinct in me to write an I'm back email that I had to like almost physically stop myself from writing that. Like I wrote that first draft, I got it out of my system, and then I hit delete on it. And then I wrote an email that I would have maybe sent the next week. And so that is, I feel like, one advice we need to take. It's send more emails, and also the advice that you give to your clients, also just take it. And I know it's hard. So if you try and you fail, totally okay.
I just found myself wanting to ask you a million questions like about what we should be doing. I was like, oh, this feels like I'm offended by some of the things you just said because it feels like we're subjected to that. It reminded me of Val. We worked with Val as well. Val's a wonderful human. I mean, we don't need to turn this into like a love fest about how wonderful a person Val is, but I think it was one of the things that she said to me was it was back when blogging was a bit more normal, or it was something that like more people were just doing personal blogs. And it was that thing of like, people don't want to read an apology blog. Like, sorry, I haven't written in 2 weeks. I know I wrote every week, but I skipped two because like no one wants to read that. It's boring. It's not like the content anyone's there for. Just start sharing again. And I think so many businesses feel like they're like, oh, I haven't posted on my Instagram story for a while, so I need to get on and be like, hey, I haven't been here for, and it's like, we've been distracted watching
So
YouTube
again,
videos.
there's a bit of it needs a bit of a flip where we're being us focused, whereas we need to be customer focused. So we need to put the customer first. The customer doesn't care we haven't been around. All the customer care is that when we're coming back, what are we coming back with? Is it value or is it just posturing?
Yeah, it's not that. If I'm apologizing for me forgetting to email you, it has not much to do with.
Yeah, I'm making myself feel better, and I really don't care what the other
This is
person
a
thinks or
therapy
feels.
session. What you're getting right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's going and deleting their apology email they're about to send their people.
And I feel like we're kind of getting into this, so I kind of want to ask, what are the biggest mistakes or missteps that you see businesses taking when they're rolling out a campaign for the first time, or maybe even just in general, like in an everyday email strategy?
Not segmenting and not suppressing certain segments, right? So if you are sending out, let's say, a 25% discount offer, and you have had people who have bought in within the last 7 days with you, they need to be suppressed. Because otherwise, you're going to get super pissed off customers on your hand saying, I bought at full price, now you're selling this at 25% off, right? And even if it's like, you're totally within your rights to have a discount whenever possible, and they're totally within their rights to buy whenever, but it's just a bad feeling, right? They will feel taken advantage of, even though that's not technically what happened. In this business, perception is everything. And so if they don't feel well taken care of, they are going to go away. So please suppress. And also, segment your list based on how engaged someone is with your emails, how whether they buy from you or not. Are they a VIP customer where they've come back to you again and again? So all of these are like, at each of these levels, you need to have a conversation in a different tone of voice with them. So somebody who's bought from you from the first time, you are still rolling out the red carpet for them, in the sense where you're making a great first impression. Somebody who buys from you for a second time, at that point it's like welcoming a friend back, right? They come visit you, you open the door, there's a big friendly hello, you're familiar with each other. Somebody who's bought from you 5 times or more, they're VIP. They don't get to knock anymore. They just get to open the door and come into your house. And so they need to be treated accordingly. And so I feel like this is where customer journey is so important. You need to understand where the user or the customer is and then treat them accordingly.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. I love the answer. And I wanted to chime in with what I would say and get your opinions on how to do this better. But my pet peeve is signing up for an email newsletter, or maybe I just want a discount code before I make a purchase. And then you get like 5 emails right away, like opt in or subscribe, make sure that you actually want this. And now I'm going to send you an email that literally just says hi and thank you. So I would love to hear your thoughts on welcome email. And I know this is a little off script, but they irritate me to death. And it's like the first, when you're setting up flows for the first time in any email marketing platform, it's like the first one that you're directed to set up. And I think so many people get them wrong. Would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting that you asked me about this, because my comeback email was about my biggest gripe with welcome emails in e-commerce, right? And so one of the things I always like, and I get a lot of pushback on it because this is challenging the status quo. It's like, I'm always like, please don't offer a discount as a sign-up incentive, because what that does is it completely takes over the welcome sequence. All of a sudden, it's not a welcome sequence, it's a discount sequence where you're sending reminders and you're pushing people to make that first purchase. There are so many better ways to get somebody to buy from you for the first time. And so, if let's say you have a 10% or a 20% sign up offer, your first email is, hey, welcome to our brand. Here's your 10% discount. Don't forget to, make the most of it. So usually that discount code is valid for 7 days. You're spending 7 days sending reminders, and you're losing your prime window into making a connection. So I am a proponent of a double opt-in, simply because I got my start in SaaS. Maybe that's why. But I always say that having a double opt-in, yes, it's slow growth, but it's important. And so I will say that you get an email confirmation, like the sign-up confirmation email, and then you get the welcome email. And those 2 emails are the only emails that should be going out on the first day. And so 4 or 5 emails is a big no. If there's anything else you need to say to them, that can be said in either an SMS or the next day or the next day or the next day. Like, there's no rule that says you have to bombard them with all the information at the same time.
I love that. I feel like I always coach our e-commerce clients to not just do a discount code for the incentive for sign up, but to actually craft some content that's helpful. If it's a skincare brand, let's put together some resources for transitioning to natural skincare, or maybe it's a food brand and let's share some recipes in those welcome emails.
Absolutely.
And maybe there's a discount code too, because
and okay, so here's another thing that I tell clients. E-commerce emails are brilliant because subscribers expect to be sold to. So they're easy. But that doesn't mean that the sale is the first thing they notice. The sale could be at the bottom as well. And if your content is engaging, if you're providing value, they will scroll to the bottom. And once they start expecting, okay, so this brand always makes an offer at the end of the email, even when they're sending value-based emails, they will scroll down and check it out, even if they ignore the rest of the email. So if it's a discount or a sale that's important to them, they will find it. And I'm so glad you brought up that part about providing value. It's easy. For skincare brands, I always say, what are your ingredients? So if it's a hyaluronic acid, let's talk about that, and then push every single product of ours that has an hyaluronic acid. Then that becomes like a natural transition. We've just shown you all the benefits of this hyaluronic acid. Now it's time to show you which one of our products have them. It's relevant selling, and it is us helping them out. You don't have to go searching for products that have this. Here they are.
I
love it
didn't
so
know we were
much.
going
Yeah,
to
I think
get
it's like the
email hot
marriage
takes
of
on this. I feel like some of this,
So
we tweet this outright, we'll start some fights probably, you know?
yeah, so I love that you say that because the tagline, unofficial tagline of my newsletter is picking an email fight every Wednesday.
I love it. Oh man, I love that so much. I always have lots of opinions in that way, so I think
Yeah,
that we'd be quite the duo.
absolutely.
I love it.
What are the mistakes people make, even in just like messaging and copy? I think there's so many times where our clients get really stuck in what do I write? Like you could say like, oh, educate them about your product, or they just feel like gridlocked. And I know you have spent some time as a content writer. You said that was a dark period of life, so I'm not trying to take you all the way back there, but you've got some experience in messaging and how do we like do all of that. If people felt stuck, what are some things that you can say to help dislodge them from that spot?
One of the first things I say, and I think I will say it probably on my deathbed as well, is that email is treated as a marketing tool, but it is a communications tool. So talk to people. Like your list could be 100,000 people, but on the end of the other screen, it will be one person reading that email. And so it needs to be treated like a conversation. And so, no, I'm not saying hi, first name. I don't even use hi first name. I avoid it, like because it's like weird. Like I already know who I'm emailing, kind of, and when it's my personal life, right? I just start from a hot take, or I start from a conversational email. It's like, here's the thing, or this is something that I've been wondering about, and all like in my personal emails for e-commerce is as simple as starting. Like so, when I'm writing email copy and I'm getting stuck, I will revert to hi first name simply because as a copywriter, it's been drilled into me, right? But that's my way of getting past. It's like that email I wrote and deleted. That's my way of getting past the writer's block. It just gives me that permission to write my shitty first draft. And then I cut the first top of the email. And then when it gets really meaty is when I start it off. And so treat your emails like a conversation and not like a marketing tool because you are talking to people and it will just go down so much better.
Hmm. That's so interesting because I also hate when emails start with hi, Ashley, or anything like that. And I think it's like, in my mind, I feel instantly I don't trust the brand because I know that they're not typing this email out to me. Like, I
Yeah.
know there's a variable somewhere and they're
Yeah.
sticking my name in from a database. And like, as a consumer, that has always irritated me. Like, don't pretend like you know me. I know you don't know me.
Exactly. That's
And
my
so
thought process too.
I've never been able to explain why I hate that so much. And when I've helped clients design emails, usually I never include those. And almost every client's like, oh, can we start it with hi first name? And I was like, sure. I don't have a good rationale for not doing that, but
Yeah.
I
I
never do.
always have a
It's weird.
conversation, and I have a lot of conversations with e-commerce clients around like a lot of things because I do things very differently from the mainstream stuff, right? And so I'm like, let's talk about the other ways we can personalize your emails, right? And one of the easiest way to do it is by the buyer's journey. So
Hmm.
where are they? Has this person bought from us? Has this person abandoned a cart? All of those. Oh my god, abandoned a cart. And do you want another hot take?
Yes, go.
I think abandoned cart emails are creepy as
Me
F.
too. Oh my gosh. I just got one and it was sent to me truly 30 minutes after I looked at the product. And I think the timing was also like so creepy and they never work. I'm like, I clicked out for I mean, maybe they do work and you could tell me I'm wrong. But for me, I'm too creeped out to even make the purchase.
Yeah, so they do work. All right. I'm not gonna lie, and they do work. So it's why they're so popular. It's why they make so much money.
Mhm.
But there's a way to do it in a way that's less creepy. Like, don't say, hey, we noticed you left something behind. Like that is stalker behavior 101. Let's say I did some emails for a shoe brand, right? And I was like, when we're doing abandoned cart emails, my abandoned cart subject line was love shoes, us too. I'm like,
Mm.
it's a conversation. Yes, it's by nature, it's a little creepy that it's an abandoned cart email. And yes, I am going to refer to the fact that you left something in your cart, but I'm not going to make you feel creepy, right? There are ways to say this stuff without being very in your face. And so, and it gets easier when you treat it like a conversation.
I love that. I just pulled up the one I was referencing. And the subject line was, "We saw you looking, ... And I was like, ew.
And you're like, you build a website. You like, that like we know this is happening, but
No.
I don't like when I say something out loud and my phone shows me ads for that
Yeah.
thing later. I don't like that. I get that it's nice.
It reminds me of, and talking about it being conversational, it reminds me of now when I have in-person real life conversations with friends after 18 months of only seeing them on social media. It's like weird if you don't reference their social media, and also weird if you're like, "Hey, I saw you were at this restaurant last Friday." And they're like, "I didn't see you there. How do you know that?" Like it's always this weird,
Yeah.
we know it's all happening, but how do you pick up a conversation knowing that you're picking it up from this like place of, I'm only following you on social and not in real life, or I'm actually a brand using really cool email marketing platforms to talk to you and we don't personally know you. But I feel like you're right in that it's in the approach, and it's
Yeah.
like being honest, I think, about how the technology is being used in a way that feels light. And yeah, I just think like the difference between, oh my gosh, you love shoes, I love shoes, and hey, I saw you looked at my Instagram
Yeah. Oh
profile.
my
It's
God.
like,
And I love emojis, but we saw you looking with those eye emojis is just next level creepy. Like I feel unsafe in my inbox.
Is there
that's so
is
true.
there segmentation or personalization that you find yourself always like recommending people? Like, is there merge tags? Like, not high first name, but is there like what do you advise your clients to be doing with the tools that
So
are there?
yeah, so merge tags for things that are calling back onto their activity on our
Hmm.
website, right? So if they are abandoning a cart, then there'll be a merge tag or some kind of code there that will pull in. That's not my area of expertise because I do not do implementation. I work in SaaS, but I'm also the person who will mess up my tech the first time every single time. I have 100% track record of that. And so my whole thing is like, I'm email strategy and copy only. You have to take care of the implementation on your own. But if you want me to take care of it, I will go and partner with somebody, and that is going to cost you more. And brands are usually okay with that.
Yeah, sometimes you get into tools or you start to people sit and we're advising clients of how to think about their email marketing or how to get comfortable in their own like Klaviyo, ConvertKit, Mailchimp, whatever the platform is, and there's just so many tools that people start to think like, oh, I should do this or don't do this, or I can send somebody something on their birthday, or I can send somebody like other things, and you can get kind of paralyzed at times, which is why a strategist who sits back and is like, how do your customers, it's not like, can you do creepy things with your email? You for sure can. How do your customers interact with you? Like, what conversation are you trying to
Yeah.
have? And sort of looking at it from a higher level is key. Is key.
Yeah.
Mm.
If somebody wants to learn more from Summer, they could pay her, and that would be cool. For sure, we don't need to try and get all of her secrets out. Um, we're gonna change topics a little bit. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs who are parents who listen to this podcast, and
Yeah.
sometimes we get the text messages, or sometimes the personal messages we get are often about that sort of topic of like the content, like the uh just listen. It feels like parents, we're still in the space where like parents aren't able to really talk about what that's all like, or maybe like this is the first
Yeah.
generation where people are both parents and entrepreneurial at the same time, and you can be
Yeah.
both. You don't have to just be one. Particularly for women, I think men have always been allowed to
Yeah.
be
Oh my
entrepreneurs and
God. Don't
parents.
get me started on
But we can get
that.
started on that. This is a good spot for that. Um,
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what sort of advice or things that you have found work for you in that space, especially as we live in a world that's we live in like this world that's sort of a patriarchal school of thought. Yeah, what's that? What would you, if you could talk to the moms listening here who are feeling maybe a bit isolated, what would you say to them?
I'm going to say that find a way to filter out the noise, right? Nobody is going to come in and raise your kids for you. Nobody's going to come in and help you out financially. So you have to do what you have to do. And if that means the kids are eating cereal for dinner, then that means the kids are eating cereal for dinner. My kids eat cereal for dinner more times than I want to admit, but they do, because I am in Pakistan, which is 8 to 9 hours ahead than the rest of the world, which means I am taking calls in the evening. And it was an active choice to have clients in the US, simply because that has been my area of experience and that is where I have grown my business, right? So my clients are always going to be in a different time zone than me. And that means, yes, I can try to keep the bedtime at 7 for my kids and then start taking calls for 8. But let's face it, which 5-year-old has ever fallen asleep the minute she gets herself in bed, right? And so a lot of times we have a routine, some kind of a semblance of a routine, but we didn't always. It wasn't until I moved into this new apartment 2 months ago that we do have a routine. Before I tell you what chaos my previous life was, the routine right now is 5 p.m. I take the kids to the park. 6 p.m. we come back, then it's dinner and whatever amount of TV you want to see. 7 p.m. everybody in bed. And then it's whatever. You have me until 8 p.m. If you're asleep, you're asleep. If you're not, I am getting locked in my home office, right? Unfortunately, the kids take it as permission. If they're not asleep, they get to play while mom's away. And so 3 hours later, I walk out of my home office and they're still awake. And so instead of losing my cool or anything, I've just learned to, take it as it is. There are consequences, of course. Anytime somebody stays up past their bedtime, next day they don't get to go to the park. Because this is now their only outing in a pandemic, it is a huge thing, at least for the 5-year-old. The 11-year-old likes to challenge the authority. But before that, I was living in a much smaller space. That meant even if somebody turned on the TV or somebody rang the doorbell, people would get disturbed and wake up. So we had no bedtimes, and online schoolings were so much harder for us because we had no bedtimes. People were sleeping late. I was working even later. And I was in growth mode. So I was pulling 12-hour work days on top of being a full-time parent, on top of being the primary caretaker of my house. So my husband never stopped going to work throughout the pandemic. He's not a doctor. He's not a paramedic. He is a banker. And they never stopped going to work. And so, yes, he would pick up the slack, but if he's coming back home at 10 p.m., how much slack is he picking up anyway? Right? And so it was all on me. And I decided early on, it's either my mental health or it's my kids' mental health. And I want to keep both. So we take one day at a time. And I'm unapologetic. And it was hard when I was unsuccessful, to be honest, because there were so many comments about, why are you doing this? Right? Mm-hmm. Focus on your kids, make sure they get into good schools and all of that. And I live in Pakistan, so the patriarchal society here is even worse. Yeah. I cannot go into a government department or anywhere else and get things done unless I have my father or my husband with me, not because it's the law or anything. It's because people will not take you seriously unless you have a man with you. And so to save time, I always tell my husband, either you do it or I need to find a time and my dad can take me. And so, it really, and I spent 10 years in the UAE where this was not a problem, even though they're a Muslim majority country. And so for me, that transition was hard. You get used to the good stuff really fast, right? So yes, I grew up in Pakistan and I knew how to navigate the society and the system very, very well. But then for 10 years, I was living in the UAE. I got used to the good life where I just had to walk in, take a number, walk to the counter when my number was done and get things done. Here, when I've come back, I've really struggled with this. And I get so mad. And my mom and my sisters and my dad are like, but you know how this system works. And I'm like, I've tasted the good life.
Man, I was like, we could maybe use a terrible thing like super patriarchal society. I'm sorry, I just can never go to the bank again. You're just gonna have to do it forever, husband.
Yeah, absolutely. I do it. But then the husband only gets one day a week off. So it's either family time versus all the chores that he needs to do. And so do what works for you. Honestly, I drop more balls than I can keep them in the air. And I very vocally and very publicly and very transparently tell everybody that. If you see me excelling at my business, I am not being the best mom that I could be. Yeah. And that's and that's a trade-off. So if you see me being quiet on my business or being quiet on Twitter, that's because I'm spending time with my family. I have a one track mind. I have not learned to juggle multiple balls, and I don't think we're built that way anyway. And so I've just learned to focus on one thing at a time. Sorry, that was a long winded answer.
I also have 2 small kids at home, and I don't think anyone is ever as honest as you just were, and I so appreciate it and reiterate that if my business is doing amazing, chances are my kids have eaten Honey Nut Cheerios and watched so much Netflix that week. And if my kids are super happy and we're going to the park all the time, chances are my revenue's low. Like, and that's just honestly the truth.
Yep.
And it's the longer I stay at it, the more I'm okay with it never being in balance, or just knowing that like you're at one end of a teeter totter, but then when you look back on it, it seems balanced after you've done it enough times.
Yeah.
And I think we don't hold those like two, it's just two competing needs that, and they're both always there, right? Like we need to make money for a living to help our kids, and
Yeah.
our kids need us to prioritize them to also grow up and be secure humans.
Yeah.
And both of those things will always be in conflict. And I think my personal opinion is that people who try to act like they're not in conflict maybe have figured something out that I haven't, or maybe just aren't
Yeah.
being honest.
Or they have nannies.
Yes.
But there are challenges to that too as well. So I'm not going to say having a nanny is the answer. There are challenges to that because I do have a business friend who does have a nanny. And she has her own unique challenges because kids need their moms.
It's so true.
We did it. We had a client who has a nanny placement service in Columbus,
Oh,
Ohio,
that's amazing.
where I'm located locally. And it was like a high-end nanny placement service. If anyone's in Columbus, Ohio and needs a nanny, I have the best person for you.
But are you getting us a discount?
But yeah, no, I'm always like, hey, I don't have any children, but I'm like, hey, it's just very, very impressive people for like very high performing entrepreneurs typically, who they're like running households that are the nannies that she places have bigger salaries than the people at our company, anyone at our company does. So
Wow.
it's a different game. But when you start to realize like, oh, there's some entrepreneurs around town who get a lot of attention or are paid attention to, and they're really powerful and they're moving around and doing a lot of things, and they have a nanny that is kind of like a chief of staff that's operating like 12 other care providers for the home that are being coordinated.
Yep.
So that person can focus on whatever it is, or even just so that like whichever parent is home is present with the kids and is like just sitting there talking and listening and those things, and to try and be like other people who are in different situations than you would probably drive you mad. It's like when you said like block out the noise, it's such that like comparison trap that happens so often when we're like, oh, I should be doing what they're doing, but we don't know what everybody's situation is.
Exactly. So we see people's highlights on social media, right? Everybody that's marketing themselves, that's the highlight. We don't see the 10,000 hours that came before it. And so I've learned to see past the glamour and just appreciate them for the hard work that they did, but also realize that that's not for me if it feels completely unachievable.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of like being a creative person, leading people, being innovative, staying on top of your industry. You're working with, I think SaaS and direct to consumer businesses seem to be like often seem like at the forefront of technology, and they're adopting new things. So all of that takes a lot of work and energy, and it just takes a lot. How do you explain what you're doing? Where does the inspiration come from inside of all of that? What sort of fuels you? Where does that come from for you?
So there are a bunch of layers to that, right? The first is to me running my own business is setting a good example for my girls. I honestly don't think I'm raising people who will have full-time jobs. Like my 5-year-old still says like her question was, is it necessary for me to have one career? And I was like, no. And then she was like, okay, then first I want to be a makeup artist and open my own salon. Then I want to be a chef, and then I want to be a teacher. And I'm like, go for it. I don't care. And then the 11-year-old yo-yos, right? But she knows that she has options. So dad's working full time, mom has a business. But both of these people together are able to give us a good life, right? It's not one or the other, it's whatever fits you best. And so that's on the personal front, right? On the business front, my inspiration, my passion, all of that comes from serving people. And for me, that's not clients, that's me serving the people that they're in business for, right? So for e-commerce, that's their customers. For SaaS, that's their users. And in serving their customers and users, I get to serve my clients. And I just, honestly, we've all seen and heard, like, we're millennials. At least I am. I don't know about you guys. But so we've grown up seeing all these companies do bad things. And then it catches up to them, and then nothing happens, right? And so in my own small way, I'm making sure I work with the right companies. And because I have my own business, I get to make that choice. And part of it is, my religion plays a big role in it. I don't work with alcohol, gambling, or interest-based lending companies. I don't charge interest in any shape or form. I am a big proponent of girl education, and I donate 2% of my project fee to either the Malala Fund or a local organization in Pakistan, which, and I've recently started doing that because I realized my dollars convert into a lot of Pakistani rupees, and I get to help educate kids. So recently, a single project of mine was able to fund the education of 4 kids for a full year.
It's amazing.
And so I get to do all of that. And I'll tell you something. When I started donating and I saw the real impact that my work was making, because I chose organizations that were very transparent with where the money was going, it made it so much easier for me to value myself and charge more because I was able to help more people. And so it's a chain reaction of things. And so it wasn't, all that advice was like, believe in yourself, know your worth, all of that. That didn't work for me. What worked for me was seeing the very real impact I was able to have. And if I wanted to have more of an impact, I needed to charge more. And so, like, I've always known I've been good at my work, right? But believing it and telling other people about it, it's that was the hard part for me. And so if I want to help somebody, I better believe it, and I better convince the other person of it as well. And I don't know why, for me, that became easier.
I always have this conversation with people. How do I say this? We experimented with some times of not taking on website clients or branding clients unless they've been in business for 2 years, because after 2 years, some of the that stuff, like where you're like, you can go off of the high and coolness of being like, I have a new business and look how interesting we are. And you can kind of power through that. But after 2 years, something hits and you get tired and you get burnt out 3 times over the course of 2 years or something. And you're like, all right, I'm enough with that. Let's get serious about this. And you find that real thing. And it's not surprising to hear all of that. But I just think sometimes you're like, I want to go make a difference or do things in my own, I want to be creative. And we see people on social media or anywhere else doing all of that. We want to be like those people, but we don't often see what's behind the surface. So if I was like, I want to become successful like Samar is, well, find something to donate money to that you care about so much that that when people don't pay you, you feel like they're stealing education from girls in your town. Then you start charging money. Really, you start being able to do that. And it sometimes takes that motivation, to start to make some of those changes. That's really cool. I've seen that in our life for sure. It's a pretty, it's a big thing. It's a big thing. Let's get into rapid fire questions. And so we have two rapid fire questions that we always ask people. I'll handle the first one. Ashley, you can get the second one.
Okay.
Because the first one's the most important question of the day. Give us your favorite songs from the years 2000 to 2009.
You guys have no idea how much I love this question, because my older daughter was born in 2010, and that's where my music stopped, right? So all of my music that I still listen to is from the 1990s to 2000. And so because we're not talking about the 1990s, I'm not going to mention Backstreet Boys. I'm not going to mention Boyzone. I'm not going to mention Spice Girls. I am going to say Did you say 5 songs?
Yeah, 5 is good. Yeah, 5's good. Sometimes people feel constrained by 5. Other times people
Yeah,
feel...
I totally
Yeah,
do.
okay.
So I'll tell you 5 songs and then I'll tell you the whole list
Okay,
of
that's
people
good.
on my playlist, right? So Avril Lavigne's Complicated was a staple in my teenage years, which were the 2000s. Then Santana's Maria. Oh my God. Still that song is one of my favorite. Black Eyed Peas, every single song by them. But Where Is the Love was a special
So good.
one,
I forgot
right?
about that song. Oh, so good.
I know. And then Bon Jovi's It's My Life. Simply because I was a rebellious kid. And that was the one sentence I wanted to say to my parents again and again and again, but I wouldn't because, I did not want a thrashing. But yes. So other than that, Rihanna was just becoming a thing. There was Beyonce. Let's not forget Britney Spears, who's having a moment again. Kylie Minogue, Nelly, Eminem, Shakira, Kelly Clarkson, Maroon 5. And oh my God, I don't want to say this, but Usher and Ludacris put out some really good music.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Nelly Furtado. Like, I don't remember her releasing any music in the past decade, but oh my God, Nelly Furtado was so good. Oh, and then I haven't even gone towards like Coldplay and Bono and U2, but like these are the bands
Yeah.
This
and
is
the
so
artists
good.
that are still in my playlist.
Oh, I love... No one has said Avril Lavigne yet, but that's iconic, and someone should have said that. It's so interesting. Everyone says Lady Gaga and Beyonce seem to be like the most commonly used phrases, but on the last episode we had 2 gentlemen who like listed a whole bunch of things that no one has ever said before. You gave us a whole bunch of new ones. It was like, I feel like this was a moment in history where we still were all listening to radio hits, but we also started to steal music from the internet, so we could also have everything whenever we wanted.
Oh my God, I was a Napster baby.
And we just were gorging ourselves with the hits. You're like, this is popular on the radio, but I don't have to wait till 8 p.m. to listen to it. I can listen to it 24/7.
And I don't have to record off of the radio as well with the ads and everything. Oh my God, we're the last generation to do that.
Now
That
it's
is so wild. I miss that. I miss when we all kind of listened to the same thing, because now I still just very much love mainstream pop music. And the older I get, the more I'm like, I do. It's what I love, and I will never venture outside of that.
Same. I am unapologetic about the fact that my music taste or my music knowledge has not gone past 2010. Yeah. It just hasn't.
I've honestly never.
So I never caught the Taylor Swift fever. I never caught the Justin Bieber fever. Like, I don't think I've heard their music enough for it to, get ingrained in my soul, so to speak. But this music, it's part of my soul now.
Oh, I could sing you every line of Usher, You Got It Bad. Like, that was like the best of my entire childhood. So good.
We're going to have Ashley back in the future to do that.
For the happy hour episode. I'll need a drink first, but
yes.
All right, I love it. So let's say a future entrepreneur or someone who's just listening to us right now with little to no experience, just good ideas. What's some advice that you would pass on to them?
Only one piece of advice. Say yes first, freak out later. You can figure out everything else between the time you need to deliver. And my business really, really took off when I started saying to leads on discovery calls that this is the part I can ace. This is the part I'm not so sure about, but I will figure it out. And if I can't, I will go and find somebody. You won't feel the difference. That responsibility is on me. And so many clients are willing to take that chance. So if you are a woman and who's waiting for that perfect job or that perfect project, it is not going to come. There's a stat out there somewhere where men, if they qualify for like 50% or 60% of stuff, they will apply. And they will be considered and they will even be given those jobs. But women, if they're not 90 to 100%, they will hold themselves back. Please don't. Say yes first, freak out later.
Love that.
What about bad advice? Is there anything that you feel like is thrown around all the time on, just like generic business advice that like, this didn't really work for me?
Yeah, all those six-figure stuff.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll be honest, because I believe in full transparency. I hit 6 figures for the first time last year. And let's face it, those were like figurative. I'm a cash accountant. So by the time December 31st came around, I was maybe at 96, 97, but I had signed contracts. But because I do cash-based accounting, the money hadn't come in. Technically, I was a six-figure business. But this year, business has picked up even more, right? I'm going to throw out a number here simply because I want to make another point that is related to this. January to August 31st, I have made $139,000. My expenses are $102,000.
Yeah.
So yes, six figures are great, but tell me about your expenses. So that I felt like that entire six-figure dream is a lie. I'm not making six figures. I am making low five figures that is actually cash in hand. Everything else is going out. And so I feel like that is one piece of advice that people need to stop paying attention to. A six-figure business is, yes, a nice vanity number to have. But if you are making less than six figures and you are saving more than I am at this point in my business, baby, you are richer than me.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, if you're listening to this and you're confused, there's a book called Profit First, which is wonderful at breaking things down into like a simple way of thinking. There's also a book called Accounting for the Number Phobic, which is good, is very like an elementary level look at things if you're very unfamiliar.
If you're like me, I need that book, Adam, because I started reading Profit First, and when we got to the part where he's making, he has these, the screenshots start getting printed is where I lose it. Like I closed the book and I haven't gone back to it.
You don't have to. The fact that you're like talking about numbers confidently is you're good.
So I pay myself a salary.
Yeah.
I make sure that my personal expenses do not exceed that. Business expenses is where
you went from just a freelancer to you're running a business now, and even if you and that's exactly. A lot of people don't make that transition. You can still be running a business that is one person in it. Like it's very possible. You don't have to have subcontractors. You don't have to, but you treat it a particular way. And if you're talking about doing cash-based accounting or accrual, or you're like, if like in an accrual standpoint, I was a six-figure business, but from a cash standpoint, I wasn't, then you're treating it like a business. We're running this you're treating it like a business in a way that like, that's how banks view your business or how mortgage lenders view your business or, things like that. So it's, cool. It's cool. I think that transparency is so true. And there's times where we've just seen that a lot where you think people are really crushing it. And Ashley, we run into that often where we're working with the online store and someone's like talking a big game kind of, and then you hop into their Shopify and you're like, oh, okay. I thought you're not, it is a very different set of advice and investments for people at different stages of their business. So that transparency can serve you well as you get into it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for doing that.
I've actually had to turn away e-commerce brands because they weren't making enough money to justify my expense.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's great that you want to do it right, but right now your focus needs to be on boosting money. So go work with a junior copywriter who will get you the emails that you need. And I will tell them on the discovery call which ones they need. And I was like, even if like having some kind of emails is better, when you start making money, then you come to me to optimize them. But for now, if you do this, you'll be stressing about the money you're investing in me. And email is not a fast game, right? Because it'll work fast if you are actively building your list. But if you're like, you may have like 20,000 subscribers, but if you're not building your list, those 20,000 subscribers have gone cold by now. And so maybe we're lucky if we have 1,500 out of those that we're able to re-engage. So that's not a lot of money. And and so these are all conversations I have with business owners, because as a business owner myself, I know what it's like to have expenses that are crazier than your earnings.
Man, that is some truth. I'm telling you, it's so true. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on and just chatting and for all of the hot takes. I personally enjoyed all of them and agree. And I honestly could talk to you all day, but I'm just so thankful for your time and for being on.
Thank you for having me. I absolutely enjoyed myself. And if I get into any trouble, I know who to come after.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And we need to get a playlist pulled together. This is like...
Yes.
I'm just gonna go listen.
Absolutely. There's an e-commerce brand out there that is pre-launch, and all they've done on their Instagram account is put out a Spotify playlist.
Oh, that's
And it
so
is so good. It's again a 90s playlist, but not my taste per se, but still so good. It is, and because I love that person founder so much, she is a copywriter turned DTC brand founder. And so I'm so excited to see what she will do, because that brand's emails are going to be so spot on. But they're pre-launch and their marketing is super amazing. But for now, because they're building, all they're doing is sharing a playlist. And I love it.
Amazing. If you're listening to this and you want to learn more about Samar, you can hop into the show notes on whatever thing you're listening to this on, and all the links to hire or learn from or tweet at Samar will be there for you. Thanks, Samar.
All right.